What if realizing nobody cares could be the key to your true freedom? When you stop seeking approval, you start building real power. In a world obsessed with recognition, the quiet path is the one that changes everything. There's a harsh truth we all eventually run into, sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once, and it's this: nobody really cares. Not about your excuses, not about your pain, not even about your potential. At first, this can feel cruel, even cold. But if you sit with it long enough, you'll discover something deeper, something liberating. Because when you stop expecting the world to care, you finally begin to take full ownership of your life. You stop living to be understood and start living to understand yourself. You stop explaining your dreams and start building them quietly. You stop waiting for applause and start showing up for yourself every single day with or without recognition. We're not here to be liked. We're not here to be seen. We're here to become strong from the inside out. And that kind of strength isn't flashy. It doesn't beg for attention. It's built slowly in silence through thousands of unseen choices. That's the path of the Stoic, the path of inner power, not chasing validation, not performing for a crowd, just aligning your life with something deeper than approval, something unshakable. And if you've ever felt like no one sees your effort or hears your thoughts or values what you quietly carry inside, good. That means it's time to stop outsourcing your worth. It's time to reclaim your energy, protect your peace, and build a life that stands even when no one's watching. This isn't about being heartless. It's about being free. Because the day you stop needing the world to care is the day you finally focus on what truly matters: your character, your direction, your discipline. That's where real peace lives. Not in being praised, but in becoming. So today we dive into 12 Stoic lessons, not to impress anyone, not to seek applause, but to remind you that your greatest power has always been within. And it begins with this truth: nobody cares. So focus on your life. 1. Your worth doesn't depend on applause. Have you ever asked yourself, would I still do this if no one clapped? It's a confronting question, one that strips away the illusion of purpose and leaves you face to face with your real motives. Because the truth is, most of what we do is performed for approval, for attention, for recognition. But applause is a fragile foundation. It comes and goes with people's moods, their biases, their distractions. And if your worth is tied to that, to likes, to compliments, to praise, then your identity will forever be at the mercy of things you can't control. Stoicism teaches us that our worth doesn't live in others' eyes. It lives in the alignment between our actions and our values. Are you being honest even when it's uncomfortable? Are you showing up with discipline even when no one's watching? Are you choosing integrity over convenience? That's where real worth begins. Not in how loudly the world cheers, but in how deeply you respect the person you're becoming. Think about the sun. It doesn't ask to be seen. It just rises quietly, powerfully every day, and still it lights the world. That's the kind of energy you need to embody. Quiet power, unshakable direction, not chasing admiration, but radiating truth. Because when you build a life based on who you really are, not who others expect you to be, you stop needing the applause and start creating a life worth living on your own terms. So next time you feel unseen or underappreciated, ask yourself this: am I proud of the way I showed up today? If the answer is yes, that's your applause. That's your power. Because no one can take away the dignity of a life lived in alignment. And that's the kind of worth that doesn't need to be validated, only honored. 2. External validation is a trap. Why do we care so much about what other people think? It starts early. A smile from a parent, a gold star from a teacher, a like on a post. All tiny hits of approval that shape our behavior without us even realizing. And soon, without knowing it, our compass shifts. We start looking outward instead of inward. We stop asking, is this right for me, and start wondering, will they approve? But the more we chase validation, the more we drift from ourselves. We become performers in a play we didn't audition for, acting out roles for the crowd while forgetting who we were before the applause. Stoicism cuts through that illusion. It reminds us that validation is a seductive form of slavery, and the worst kind is the one we willingly accept. Epictetus warned, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Why? Because growth often looks messy, unpopular, awkward. But if you keep chasing approval, you'll never take the risks that lead to real transformation. You'll stay safe, but small, but lost. There's something tragic about needing permission to be yourself, about waiting for others to agree with your choices before you move. Because here's the truth. People are fickle. Their opinions are often shaped by their own insecurities, not your worth. One day you're praised, the next criticized for the same exact thing. If your identity is tied to those waves, you'll drown. But when you detach, when you reclaim your inner anchor, you become steady. Not because the world agrees with you, but because you agree with yourself. Look around. How many people are living lives that aren't theirs, choosing careers to impress their parents, posting for validation instead of expression, staying silent in rooms where their voice matters just to avoid judgment? That's the cost of external validation. It erodes your authenticity, one compromise at a time. And worst of all, it teaches you to hide, to dim your light so others feel more comfortable. But freedom that begins the moment you stop needing to be seen. The moment you realize that real peace isn't found in other people's applause. It's found in your ability to stand alone in truth. To say, this is my path whether you clap or not. That's strength. That's maturity. That's stoicism in action. Think about this. If everyone stopped noticing your effort tomorrow, would you still show up? Would you still create? Still speak your truth? Still live with discipline? If the answer is no, then your motivation isn't yours. It's rented from the crowd. But if the answer is yes, then you found something rare, something powerful, a source of action that no one can touch. And that's what you build a real life on. So let go. Not of connection, but of dependency. Give yourself permission to be misunderstood, to walk alone sometimes, to be your full self without explanation. Because when you no longer need others to validate your life, you finally begin to live it. 3. Focus on what you can control. How much of your stress comes from things you can't control? Really think about it. The traffic you're stuck in, the opinions others have of you, the timing of opportunities, the behavior of people you care about. We spend so much of our mental energy wrestling with things outside our reach, as if worry could bend reality. But it never does. And Stoicism calls that out with clarity. Epictetus said it plainly. Some things are up to us and some things are not. And wisdom begins when we learn the difference. What's within your control? Your thoughts, your choices, your perspective, the way you respond, not react to what life throws at you. That's your domain. Everything else, that's noise. That doesn't mean you don't care about others or stop planning for the future or give up on change. It means you stop suffering over what isn't yours to carry. You stop demanding the world behave the way you want, and you start choosing how you behave no matter what the world does. Imagine two people facing the same challenge. One spirals into blame, panic, and resistance. The other pauses, breathes, and says, "What can I do right now?" That moment, that shift is where power lives, not in control over outcomes but in mastery over yourself. Life becomes less about controlling the storm and more about becoming the calm within it. Take relationships, for example. You can't control whether someone stays, loves you the way you hoped, or sees your worth, but you can control how you treat yourself in their absence. You can choose dignity over desperation, stillness over chasing, clarity over confusion. And in doing so, you reclaim your strength, not by changing them, but by changing how much power you give away, even in small things. This shift matters. You can't control if your boss is in a bad mood, but you can choose how you respond to their tone. You can't control the economy, but you can control how you budget, how you adapt, how you prepare. That's not weakness. It's precision. It's a focused life. A life that doesn't scatter energy chasing ghosts, but stays rooted in what can actually be shaped. And the beauty is the more you focus on what you can control, the more influence you gain. Not over others, but over your own experience. You become less reactive, less anxious, less bitter. Why? Because you're no longer fighting reality. You're working with it. That's what the Stoics called living according to nature. Aligning yourself with the rhythm of things instead of resisting what is. So ask yourself right now, what am I holding on to that isn't mine to fix? What energy am I wasting trying to force things that are outside my hands? And more importantly, what is in my control today? What one thing can I do with focus, with integrity, with presence? That's where peace begins, not in controlling the world, but in mastering yourself within it. 4. Live for your inner standards, not the crowd. What happens when the world cheers for something you don't believe in? What do you do when the crowd moves in one direction and your inner voice quietly tells you to walk the other way? These aren't hypothetical questions. They're the everyday dilemmas of anyone trying to live with integrity, because society, as loud and persuasive as it is, changes its mind constantly. What's popular today is ridiculed tomorrow. What gets praised now might bring shame a year from now. If your values are built on what the world approves of, you'll forever be chasing moving targets. The Stoics saw this clearly. They believed that true peace comes not from obeying public opinion, but from living in harmony with your inner standards, your personal code. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The approval of the crowd is a weak and unstable foundation." Why? Because the crowd doesn't know you. It doesn't care about your unique path, your values, your truth. It rewards what is loud, not what is right. If you live for it, you'll lose yourself in the noise. Think of a compass. It points north always, even when storms rage, even when no one else is following it. That's how your values should function, as your anchor, as your guide. Not because they make you look good, but because they make you whole. And when you act in line with them, even if no one notices, you begin to experience a kind of strength that's hard to explain. It's not pride, it's peace. The peace of knowing I chose what was right, not what was easy. Let's make this real. Suppose you're at a job where cutting corners gets rewarded. Everyone's doing it, and you're told, just follow the system, don't overthink it. Do you go along, or do you hold the line knowing it might cost you something? Or you're in a group of friends who mock others to bond. Do you stay silent to keep the peace, or speak up, even if it makes things awkward? These moments may seem small, but they shape your character. They carve out your identity. They tell the world, and more importantly yourself, who you are. The more you practice this, the stronger you get. Not louder, stronger. Because living by your inner standards isn't about making a scene. It's about becoming unshakable. You walk into a room and you don't need to perform. You don't need to impress. You don't need to shrink. You just are clear, grounded, true. And yes, sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes people won't understand. They'll question your choices, your silence, your boundaries. But that's the price of authenticity, and it's worth every step. Because what's the alternative? Living a life that pleases others but betrays yourself, that's not peace. That's quiet torment. So ask yourself this. If no one ever approved of your life, would you still be proud of it? If your actions were judged only by your own conscience, would you feel aligned? These questions matter more than any applause ever could, because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to sit with yourself. And when your head hits the pillow, it's not the crowd's voice that echoes in your mind. It's yours. 5. Criticism and praise mean the same in Stoicism. What if I told you that praise and criticism are two sides of the same coin, and that both can be equally dangerous if you're not grounded? That sounds strange at first. After all, praise feels good. It's a warm rush, a dopamine hit, a signal that we're on the right path. And criticism. That's the sting, the tightness in the chest, the need to defend, to explain, to fix. But here's the Stoic view. Both praise and criticism are external judgments. Both come from outside your soul. And if your peace rises or falls based on either, then your life is still in other people's hands. Think about that for a moment. If someone insults you and it ruins your day, who has the power? If someone compliments you and it makes you feel alive, who still holds the key to your emotional world? In both cases, the answer is the same. Not you. That's why the Stoics practiced indifference to both extremes. Not coldness, not arrogance, just inner steadiness. Epictetus said, "If you are ever tempted to look for outside approval, realize that you have compromised your own integrity." Because every time you let someone else's opinion define your self-worth, you hand over control of your inner life. And slowly, without noticing, you become dependent on noise, applause to feel worthy, or silence to feel small. Let's put this in real life. Imagine you've worked hard on something, a project, a creative piece, a conversation that took courage. One person praises you, and suddenly you feel on top of the world. Another criticizes you, and the next hour is ruined. Now pause. Did the work change? Did the truth of your effort change? Number only the voices around it. That tells you something. Your experience of self is still fragile, still external. And the Stoic path is about fixing that, not by numbing yourself, but by deepening your sense of where true value lives. This doesn't mean you ignore feedback. Feedback can help us grow. But you don't worship it. You don't build your identity around it. You take what's useful, and you leave the rest. You say thank you for the input. But inside you return to a deeper question. Did I live up to my values? Because only that matters. Only that is yours to judge. Even praise can become a prison. If you need it too much, if your drive to be seen overshadows your need to be true, you might start shaping your words to win approval, softening your truth to keep people happy, playing roles instead of showing up real. And little by little, the applause that once felt like support becomes a leash. You start chasing more of it. Not because it feels good, but because you don't know who you are without it. But the Stoic, the one on the path to inner power, lives differently. They receive praise with humility and criticism with grace. But neither defines their worth. They know that what matters most is what they think of themselves. When the room is quiet, when the noise fades, when there's no one left to impress, that's where freedom is born. So ask yourself today, would I still choose this action, this decision, this way of being, even if no one ever praised it? And if someone criticized you harshly, would your confidence break? Or would it bend and stand firm? Because when praise and criticism become equal to you, not in emotion, but in weight, then you found something rare. You found stability. You found yourself. 6. Your value is self-created. Where do you believe your worth comes from? Most people never stop to ask. They assume it's inherited from titles, status, family, education, beauty, or money. They assume value is something to be earned, granted, or proven. But here's the truth the Stoics held firm to. Your value doesn't come from the outside. It isn't handed to you. It's not waiting in someone's approval, a promotion, or a number on a scale. Your value is self-created, shaped by your choices, your discipline, your courage, and how you respond to life when it doesn't go your way. We live in a world that constantly tries to define us. Algorithms tell us what we're worth by our reach. Employers measure us by productivity. Social groups classify us based on trends. But real value, intrinsic value, can't be measured in clicks or metrics. It lives in how you carry yourself when no one is rewarding you. It lives in whether or not you respect the person you see in the mirror, and only you can build that. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And in wasting it, we often delay becoming who we truly are." You build your value every day, not by what you say, but by what you do consistently. Waking up early when it's easier to sleep in. Holding back anger when it would feel good to lash out. Choosing honesty when lies would protect your image. These are the invisible bricks of your inner worth. Let's be practical. A person who makes their bed, keeps their promises, reads, reflects, works out, shows up for their family, and thinks before they speak. That person is building value quietly, day by day. You may never see a crowd cheering for them. They may not have the flashiest resume, but they walk into a room differently. They don't need to prove anything. Their presence says it all. I've earned my own respect. That's the kind of value no one can take from you. On the flip side, someone who is constantly seeking value from the outside is always vulnerable. A single rejection crushes them. A small failure shatters their image. They're always trying to be someone instead of becoming themselves. And that's not living. It's performing. This is where Stoicism becomes more than philosophy. It becomes a way of life. When you stop outsourcing your value, everything shifts. You start setting higher standards for yourself, not out of pride, but out of purpose. You stop begging for acknowledgement because you know who you are. You walk away from toxic situations, not out of spite, but because they no longer match your identity. And most importantly, you start to protect your time, your focus, and your energy because you understand how precious you've become. So the next time you question your worth, don't look outward. Don't scan the room for approval. Look inward. Ask yourself, am I showing up in a way that I admire? Am I being who I promised myself I would become? If yes, then your value is intact even if no one sees it. And if not, good, because that means you're still in control. You still have the power to build, to improve, to become. Your value isn't something to find. It's something you forge through fire, through honesty, and through daily self-respect. 7. Inner courage is quiet, but unshakable. What do you imagine when you hear the word courage? For many it's loud, it's bold, it's a grand gesture, someone standing on a stage defying the odds, leading a movement, or risking it all. But most real courage doesn't look like that. Most courage isn't posted online. It doesn't trend. It doesn't even get recognized. It happens in silence. In the moments when you choose to stay true to yourself even when no one sees, agrees, or understands. That's inner courage. And in the Stoic tradition, it's one of the highest forms of strength. Courage for a Stoic is not about fearlessness. It's about acting in alignment with your principles despite the fear. Epictetus said, "You may fetter my leg, but my will not. Even Zeus himself can overpower." What he's pointing to is that unshakable resolve that no one can touch. The world can take your comfort, your reputation, your relationships. But if you protect your will, your clarity, your inner compass, then you've lost nothing essential. Think of the courage it takes to speak the truth when silence would keep the peace. To walk away from something familiar because it no longer serves who you're becoming. To sit with discomfort instead of running from it. These moments might not look heroic from the outside, but inside they are battles. And when you choose principle over comfort, growth over ease, discipline over distraction, you win. Not in a way others can see, but in a way you can feel. Imagine someone grieving, but still waking up early to keep their promises. Someone dealing with anxiety but still stepping into uncomfortable spaces to grow. Someone afraid of failure, but still putting their work into the world. These aren't loud acts. They're quiet rebellions against weakness, the kind of strength that doesn't need to be performed because it's real. The mistake many people make is believing they need to feel strong to act strong. That courage is something you wait for, a sudden surge of confidence. But it's the opposite. Courage is action in the absence of certainty. It's choosing the harder, right over the easier wrong again and again until it becomes who you are. That's why it's so rare, and that's why it's so powerful. In everyday life, this might look like standing firm when others laugh at your boundaries, or refusing to shrink yourself just to fit in, or choosing a path of growth even when it means being misunderstood. Courage doesn't announce itself, but it changes everything, because when you act from it, you begin to trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, the opinions of others lose their grip. This is where true resilience is born, not from appearing strong but from being strong silently, consistently, without applause. The Stoic doesn't need recognition to do the right thing. They do it because it's right. And that quiet courage becomes a kind of armor, invisible but impenetrable. So ask yourself, where in your life are you waiting for permission to be brave? What choices are you avoiding because they might make you look foolish or alone or different? And what would change if you started honoring your inner voice, even if it made you uncomfortable? Because courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the whisper, "I will try again tomorrow." And sometimes that whisper is all you need to change your life. 8. Build an inner citadel. When everything outside you feels unstable, where do you go? When people turn against you, when plans fall apart, when nothing goes as expected, what do you lean on? That's the question the Stoics wanted us to answer before the storm comes. Because waiting until life collapses to find stability is like trying to build a house during a hurricane. And so they taught, build your citadel now, not a physical one, an internal one, a stronghold within your mind, your spirit, your philosophy, a place the world cannot reach and therefore cannot ruin. Marcus Aurelius spoke often of this concept in his meditations. He wrote, "People try to retreat to the country, to the beach, to the mountains. You can retreat into yourself anytime you want." What he's describing is a kind of sanctuary, not built from stone, but from clarity, not protected by walls, but by discipline. And in a world that constantly pulls at you with distractions, judgments, and noise, that inner fortress is not a luxury. It's a necessity. So what does it mean to build an inner citadel? It means training your mind to remain calm when emotions flare. It means preparing your soul to stand firm when life disappoints you. It means defining your values so clearly that nothing outside of you can confuse them. When you do this work consistently, you don't just react to life. You respond with intention. You don't get swept away by every wave. You become the anchor beneath it. Let's make it real. Suppose someone insults you publicly. Do you retaliate to save your pride? Or do you pause, breathe, and act from principle instead of ego? That pause, that space between stimulus and response, is your citadel in action. Or imagine losing something you deeply care about, a job, a relationship, an opportunity. Do you fall apart? Or do you remember that your value isn't tied to outcomes, but to who you are through the process? That mindset is your stronghold. And like any fortress, The citadel must be built daily. Every time you journal, reflect, meditate, or choose integrity over impulse, a brick is laid. Every time you keep your word to yourself despite discomfort, the walls grow thicker. Every moment of honest self-inquiry, every uncomfortable truth you face instead of avoiding, the foundation deepens. But don't mistake this for coldness. The inner citadel isn't about emotional detachment, it's about emotional mastery. It's the difference between being controlled by life and walking through life with control. It's what allows you to love without clinging, to lead without arrogance, to lose without crumbling. And here's the truth. No one can build it for you. Not a book, not a mentor, not even a philosophy. It must be built through lived experience, through showing up every day and proving to yourself that you are stronger than your circumstances. That you are steady, not because life is easy, but because your core is solid. So ask yourself today, what does my citadel look like? Is it built on unshakable principles or shallow beliefs? Do I run to it or do I even know it's there? Because the storms will come. That's guaranteed. But whether you are destroyed by them or refined by them depends on what you've built inside. And once you've built it, truly built it, you'll realize something profound. No matter what happens out there, you are already home. 9. Daily reflection is power. When was the last time you sat with yourself? Not just to think, but to truly reflect. Not to scroll, not to escape, not to solve a problem, but to quietly examine your day, your actions, your reactions. In the rush of modern life, reflection has almost become a lost art. We're trained to keep moving, to always do more, achieve more, fix more. But the Stoics knew that without reflection there can be no real growth, because what you don't observe, you repeat, and what you don't understand controls you. Seneca wrote, "Each day I examine my conscience. I look back over my actions and words and reread the whole day." That wasn't ritual for the sake of routine. It was power. The power to become a better human one day at a time, and not in dramatic leaps, but in small, deliberate corrections. That's the beauty of daily reflection. It humbles you without humiliating you. It challenges you without condemning you. It gives you a chance to meet yourself honestly and then to improve. Reflection is not about guilt. It's not about dwelling in the past or beating yourself up. It's about responsibility. It's about looking at your day and asking, where did I act from strength? Where did I fall into weakness? What patterns am I repeating? What emotions ruled me today? And more importantly, what will I do differently tomorrow? These questions don't just make you wise, they make you accountable. And in a world that loves to blame everything outside, accountability is a rare and radical form of power. Let's be practical. Imagine ending each day with 5 quiet minutes. No distractions, no judgment, just you and your thoughts. You replay a conversation and realize you interrupted out of insecurity. You recall a moment of anger and trace it back to fear, not truth. You remember something you did well, and instead of dismissing it, you honor it. That simple act, 5 minutes of clarity, start shaping the next day. You catch yourself sooner. You respond with more intention. You begin to move from automatic to aware, and over time that awareness becomes identity. You no longer just try to live with integrity. You are a person of integrity. Not because you're perfect, but because you're honest. You face your flaws without running. You learn from your missteps without shame. You grow without needing the world to applaud it. That's the quiet revolution of daily reflection. Invisible on the surface, but deeply transformative beneath it. It also gives you something else. Peace. When you've reflected deeply, you sleep differently. Your mind isn't spinning with unresolved thoughts. Your heart isn't tangled in unspoken regret. You've already met the day, looked it in the eye, and made peace with it, or made a plan to do better. That's rare. That's freedom. So ask yourself, now what did I learn about myself today? If the answer is nothing, it's not because nothing happened. It's because you weren't present enough to see it, and the good news is tomorrow is another chance. Reflection isn't a luxury, it's a necessity because life moves fast. But growth, real lasting personal growth, that requires stillness, that requires honesty, and above all that requires you. 10. Vulnerability is a strength when you own it. What if the very thing you're hiding is the key to your strength? Most of us are taught to wear armor, emotional, psychological, even spiritual. We're taught to appear composed, successful, unshaken. We learn early that showing too much fear, too much doubt, too much truth might invite judgment, rejection, or weakness. And so we hide, we pretend, we put on a performance for the world, hoping that if we appear fine, we'll eventually feel fine. But deep down, we know the truth. Suppression is not strength. It's a slow erosion of the soul. The Stoics didn't believe in denying emotion, they believed in mastering it. And mastery begins with awareness. You cannot transcend what you refuse to face. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." But bravery doesn't mean pretending you have no fear. It means looking fear in the face and saying, "You will not own me." Vulnerability, when owned, becomes a doorway to that kind of freedom. It's not weakness, it's honesty. And in a world addicted to image, honesty is rare and powerful. Imagine this. You're overwhelmed, anxious, uncertain. But instead of hiding it, you name it first to yourself, then maybe to someone you trust. You don't do it to seek pity. You do it to take ownership. And something shifts. You're no longer running from the feeling. You're standing in it fully present. And that shift, that confrontation is where transformation begins. It's where clarity returns. Because when you stop pretending, you free up the energy you are using to maintain the illusion. Owning your vulnerability is also an act of maturity. Children hide, adults face. Children deny, adults integrate. Vulnerability doesn't mean spilling everything to everyone. It means having the courage to be real with yourself and with those who have earned the right to witness your truth. And when you do, something unexpected happens. You become more resilient. Not because you avoid pain, but because you've met it before. You've walked through it. You've learned that it doesn't break you. It builds you. Let's bring this down to everyday life. Suppose you've made a mistake at work, in a relationship, in a moment of emotion. The easy route is to deflect, to justify, to pretend it didn't matter. But the strong route, the Stoic route, is to admit it plainly. That was on me. No theatrics, no self-hate, just clarity. That act of ownership is vulnerability in action. And it earns respect not just from others but from yourself. It also unlocks deeper connection. People don't bond through perfection. They bond through shared humanity, through the admission of struggle, the confession of doubt, the willingness to say, "I don't have it all figured out, but I'm trying." That's real strength. That's leadership. That's the kind of presence that makes others feel safe to be honest too. And here's the paradox. The more you own your vulnerability, the less vulnerable you become. Not because the emotions disappear, but because they no longer control you. You've met them, named them, integrated them, and what once felt like chaos becomes insight. What once felt like shame becomes wisdom. So ask yourself now, what am I hiding from myself? What part of me needs to be seen? Not by the world, but by me. Because pretending to be strong is exhausting. But being real, being grounded, being whole, that's where your real power lives. And that power, it begins the moment you stop running from your truth and start walking with it. 11. Resilience means using pain as fuel. What if your greatest strength was hidden inside your worst moment? Pain changes people, but how it changes them, that's a choice. Some people let it break them, others let it shape them. And then there are those who use it to build something unshakable. That's the Stoic way. Resilience in Stoicism isn't just about surviving the storm. It's about becoming someone wiser, stronger, and more grounded because of the storm. It's not endurance for the sake of suffering. It's transformation through it. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." At first glance, that sounds poetic, but it's more than that. It's a challenge. What if every obstacle was a hidden teacher? What if your heartbreak was shaping your compassion? Your failure sharpening your focus, your rejection strengthening your boundaries? Most people wait for pain to pass, but the Stoic leans into it and asks, "What is this here to teach me?" Pain is information. It shows us where we're attached, where we've grown complacent, where we've lost perspective. And when you stop resisting it and start listening to it, something powerful happens. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances. You start becoming a sculptor, carving strength from discomfort, meaning from chaos, and direction from despair. Think about the most resilient people you know. Are they untouched by pain, or have they walked through fire and come out different? Not harder, but clearer. Not bitter, but boundaried. Their eyes say, "I've seen things, I've lost things, but I didn't lose myself." That's resilience. Not the absence of wounds, but the refusal to be defined by them. Let's make this concrete. You've been betrayed, and it hurts. You have a choice. Close your heart forever, or open it with more discernment. You failed publicly, and feel ashamed. You have a choice. Avoid risk or rise again wiser this time. You feel lost. You have a choice. Distract yourself endlessly, or sit with the discomfort until it reveals something deeper. These aren't dramatic cinematic moments. They happen in the quiet, in your car, on your bed, in the space between old identities and new beginnings. Resilience is forged in that space, not when life is easy, but when you're unsure, afraid, uncertain, and you still choose to act with courage. You still choose to show up. You still choose to believe in something greater than your temporary emotion. That's how pain becomes fuel, not by ignoring it, but by alchemizing it. And here's the truth. No one escapes pain. Not the strong, not the wise, not even the Stoics. But what makes them different is how they use it. They see pain not as punishment, but as practice, as sharpening, as preparation. And that shift in mindset doesn't make life easier. It makes you stronger. So the next time life brings you to your knees, remember this. It's okay to feel it, to cry, to break, but don't stop there. Don't get stuck in the narrative of defeat. Ask yourself, how can I grow from this? What kind of person does this pain invite me to become? Because if you let it, your pain will become the very path that sets you free. 12. Focus on your path, not their reactions. Whose approval are you still chasing? That question may sting, but sit with it. Because if you're not careful, your whole life can become a performance for an invisible audience. Every step, every decision, every ambition filtered through the lens of will they approve? Will they support me? Will they understand? But here's what the Stoics knew, and what every person seeking inner power must eventually realize. Your path is yours alone, and the moment you start walking it based on how others react, you've already left it. People will always have opinions. They'll judge you when you play it safe. They'll judge you when you take a risk. They'll misunderstand your silence. They'll twist your words. Some will support you until your growth reminds them of their own stagnation. Others will resist your change because it threatens the comfort of who they thought you were. If your direction depends on their reactions, you'll be forever lost in their expectations. Epictetus reminded us, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid because the world doesn't often applaud deep change. It celebrates what's familiar, comfortable, and easy to categorize. But real growth doesn't fit in boxes. It requires walking through unfamiliar terrain, sometimes alone, often misunderstood. And that's okay. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be true to yourself. Think of your life as a road. Some people will walk with you. Some will fall behind. Some will question every turn you take, and that's not your problem to fix. Your responsibility isn't to manage their discomfort. It's to stay committed to your path, to your values, to your growth. When you do, something incredible happens. The noise fades. Not because it disappears, but because it no longer determines your direction. In practical terms, this means choosing your next step based on your clarity, not their approval. It means pursuing goals even when they don't make sense to others. It means setting boundaries, even when they make people uncomfortable. It means honoring your truth even when it costs you connection. Because the alternative, living as a mirror for other people's comfort, is not a life. It's a slow death of your authenticity. And don't get this confused with arrogance. This isn't about rejecting everyone. It's about refusing to betray yourself for the sake of being liked. It's about building a relationship with your own voice so strong that even the loudest critics can't drown it out. The Stoic life is not about emotional numbness. It's about emotional independence. You can love people without living for their validation. You can hear feedback without abandoning your center. You can be open to growth without becoming a reflection of everyone else's desires. That's strength. That's maturity. So here's the question. If no one clapped, if no one agreed, if no one said a word, would you still walk this path? If the answer is yes, then you found something rare, a life rooted in self-respect, a direction powered by purpose, a journey guided not by reactions, but by reason. And that kind of life, it doesn't just lead to success, it leads to freedom. So now you know you don't need applause. You don't need permission. You don't need to explain your path to people who were never meant to walk it with you. What you need is alignment, not with the world but with your soul. Because real strength doesn't come from being seen. It comes from standing firm when no one's watching. And real peace, it isn't found in being praised. It's found in becoming someone you don't need to escape from. The Stoics never promised that the path to inner power would be easy, but they promised it would be worth it. They taught us that we are not at the mercy of external noise, opinions, moods, or chaos. We are the architects of our character. We are the builders of our citadel. And every day we choose, stay small and safe, or rise quietly, intentionally with discipline and purpose. So don't wait for life to reward you. Become the reward. Live with such clarity that praise feels unnecessary, with such integrity that criticism feels irrelevant, and with such purpose that distraction feels impossible. Because in the end, nobody truly cares as much as you think they do. And that is your freedom. Now focus on your life and build it into something that doesn't just impress others, but makes you proud. If this episode gave you something to think about, share it with someone who needs this message. And if you're walking your own quiet path, I see you. Keep going. Conclusion. Freedom begins the moment you stop asking for permission. When you stop waiting to be seen, applauded, or validated, a new chapter begins, one built on truth, not performance. You do not need the world's permission to become your best self. The Stoic path reminds us that we were never meant to be shaped by external noise, but to rise quietly, persistently, with unwavering self-respect. The applause fades, the critics vanish, but the life you build in alignment, that endures. So, choose strength, choose clarity, And above all, choose yourself.